The king is dead, long live the king. Polaris, the parent company of Indian for the past 14 years, has decided to part ways with Indian by selling it to somebody which really cares about its future, the motorcycle market in general, and only wants the best for you, the customer, a private equity firm. Carrollwood LP was founded only 11 years ago in 2014, and so far it's only invested in a bunch of restaurants, real estate, obviously, and a sports media company, all of which have nothing to do with motorcycle manufacturing. But it's not all gloom and doom here, because there is actually a silver lining. In all of this shuffling of money and power, Indian has the chance to become something it hasn't been for the past 22 years before it went bankrupt. And that wasn't for the first time. Mildly independent. Stick around, because in this episode we'll go through Indian's history, which is more interesting than most people actually imagine, and we try to get a glimpse of what the future holds for Indian motorcycles. This episode is sponsored by the Innov P1 portable tire inflator. The Indian Motorcycle Company started its journey a whopping 128 years ago, back in 1897, as the US's first motorcycle company. Now, if you maybe have forgotten what life was like 128 years ago, the first electric bicycle was invented in 1897, the first diesel engine was demonstrated as commercially viable, and of course, a man by the name of George Smith was the first person ever to be charged with drunk driving. This was in London, of course, where else would it be? Indian was founded by George M. Hendy, a former bicycle racer, and after spending a few years building bicycles such as the Silver King and the Silver Queen, was then joined by Oscar Hedstrom 3 years later in 1900. Together they started building their first motorcycle prototype, a single-cylinder 1.75 brake horsepower chain-driven prototype. In 1903, they even set the world speed record on a motorcycle at a whopping 56 miles per hour or 90 kilometers per hour. And at that time, the iconic Indian red was already part of their color scheme. Before we carry on, a subscribe from you would really make my day, and Dave's for that matter, if you enjoy these videos, so thank you very much. During the next decade, Indian would focus a lot on racing and competitions, which spurred a lot of technical innovation for the brand. They would go on to build their first V-twin roadster, break more speed records, and also set a long-distance record by riding cross-country all the way from San Diego, which is in the west for non-Americans, to New York, which is in the east, in 11 days and 12 hours. However, by the end of the century, both of its founders would quit the company, citing disagreements with the board of directors of dubious practices of inflating the stock price. So, not even 20 years after its inception and just 15 years after making the first motorcycle prototype, both founding partners had left, and Indian was a company run by faceless corporate mongrels, a recurring theme in Indian's history even in present times. Fast forward to 1917, the US enters World War I, and the bigwigs at Indian decided on selling most of their stock and manufacturing to the war effort. A plan which sounded good short-term, but what it did long-term was to starve the US population of Indian bikes and have a lot of their dealers close down or move to other brands. While Indians were very popular in the military, once the war ended, the company faced the harsh reality of no longer being number one in the US, that position going to Harley-Davidson now, a manufacturer which managed to keep internal production healthy and build a customer base as well. From the end of World War I to the end of World War II, Indian kept designing, manufacturing, and refining some of its most iconic bikes like the Scout, the Chief, and the 4. Indian merged with DuPont Motors in 1930, a company which started by producing marine engines for allied nations, then shifted into manufacturing very high-end cars, to then completely cease their car business and concentrate entirely on Indian. In 1945, at the end of the war, Indian was struggling at home, its dealer network decimated, no long-term contracts from the government, so Mr. DuPont decided to sell it off to a group headed by Ralph Burton Rogers, aptly named the founding father of the public broadcasting service, which obviously has nothing to do with motorcycles. Under his control, production of all bikes except for the Chief stopped. That was sold for a few years, then they halted production on the Chief as well, and introduced two small capacity models for a few years, started Chief manufacturing back up in 1950, this time with telescopic forks, changed to a new CEO which ran the company so well that absolutely all production was stopped in 1953. Basically, Indian was a company in name only, not actually producing anything. From 1953 to 1999, for a whopping 46 years, Indian just went through the motions of being bought and sold by one soulless entity after another. Throughout these decades, Indian went through at least 8 different owners, private and corporations, all trying to revive the brand with their own visions, all chasing down profits and taking a battering ram until there was nothing left of the Indian legacy which Hendy and Hedstrom had originally envisioned. In 1999, the Indian Motorcycle Company of America, a conglomerate of 9 different companies, formed to revive the brand, and, you guessed it, went bankrupt 4 years later because whoever thought that 9 chefs would fit in a kitchen? Indian stayed completely dead for the next 3 years, until in 2006 a UK-based private equity firm, one of those companies that buys assets to flip them later for a bigger price, bought what was left and started making Chiefs again. Later, Scout and Spirits were also made using off-the-shelf parts, and this lasted until Polaris bought them 5 years later in 2011.
We're talking rugged, we're talking fun. You ride the best and the job gets done. Polaris ATVs are made in the USA. We're talking tough.
This was the first time in decades when Indian was actually run by a company which knew what they were doing in the field. Polaris was already a well-known off-road and leisure vehicle maker and started investing and developing Indian properly. In the 14 years in which Polaris has held on to Indian, they developed more than 15 different models and a lot of trims for them, brought Indian into modern times with the water-cooled Challenger, which was not allergic to electronics like its competitors, and then, just like Indian's most other owners in its history, sold it off. Poor Indian, it must really be having some serious separation anxiety by now. Fast forward to today, Indian once again belongs to a private equity firm concentrating on restaurants, real estate, and sports media. This is not Indian's first tango when it comes to investment firsts, and it will definitely not be its last. But as to what the future holds, we only have to look at its past. Indian sales have been slowly going down since their peak in 2021, and while Polaris didn't want to put in the effort of bringing the brand back to a growth line, Carolwood LP will definitely have to do that if they want to take it and sell it off for a big profit in the next 5 to 10 years. And they actually took the right first step in doing that by announcing that Indian Motorcycles will stay independent without any corporate restructuring taking place, meaning that so far its over 900 employees will keep on keeping on. Its 2 locations in the US will also remain, as will its development center in Switzerland. This means that for the first time in decades, Indian actually has a chance to become a power global player if it starts concentrating on what new age riders actually want and can actually afford. Smaller, more affordable fun bikes which still have the old Indian heritage instilled in them. Carolwood even assigned a new CEO which has decades of experience in the field. That's the motorcycle field, not the fizzy drinks or clothing field. So basically, they are giving Indian every chance they can to make it a success. Hopefully, after that happens and Indian is again a financial success, maybe it won't get sold for profits to an Indian or Chinese company. But who knows? Let us know in the comments below what direction you think Indian will take. What products will they keep? What will they axe? And more importantly, what will they attract new and younger clients with? I'd love to read your comments on this, so keep typing. Well, that's the show for today, everyone. If you've enjoyed it, give it a big thumbs up. And if you think you've learned something new, consider subscribing or becoming one of our Patreons to help us make more of these shows. Cheers, and I'll see you on the next one.
We're talking rugged, we're talking fun. You ride the best and the job gets done. Polaris ATVs are made in the USA. we're talking tough.
Buy a new Polaris ATV now.